What is up, NFL fans, and welcome back to another episode of The Way We See It. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Wesley Coleman to talk about the NFL and whatever else we want to talk about. Wesley, what's up, man? How are you?
Doing good. We're this is actually hasn't seemed quite like a dead zone of sports. This is normally like a weird time of sports, but like I've still got the Stanley Cup is still exciting. Maybe in a couple weeks when the NBA and NHL finals are over and the College World Series is done, maybe it's going to be worse. But I don't know. There's still still stuff going on. It's not just I'm not begging for attention
I'm
yet.
willing to welcome anyone to the golf. Hey, come on over to golf. Golf is here all year round. It never leaves. It's here from January all the way through December, and then guess what? It's January again, and it starts all over. So,
Well, I'll say what everybody's thinking that you're trying to get to. Is Tiger back?
Gosh, no.
I mean, that's
I'm not,
who cares?
If you want to talk about Tiger, I'm not a Tiger fan. So first and foremost, I'll get that out of the way. But let's talk about the NFL. The title of this podcast is Buyer Beware. So this is interesting to me, especially as a Steeler fan, because the Steeler fans they've been shopping at the bargain bin for the last few years, especially at the quarterback position. They've been looking for the best yet cheapest options for them. And then most recently, Jair Alexander of the Green Bay Packers was released. And so this kind of triggered this thought in my brain as to someone is going to take a shot with these players. Someone's going to say, you know what, we can make it work. Whatever was the issue, we can fix it. We can fix it. And I think there's always a concern there when you're talking about a player who was released, especially. Why do you think, Wesley, what is it about NFL teams that just think, we can fix this guy? It's almost like a toxic relationship.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes you sort of can, but I think it's always going to be a temporary fix. Yeah. I mean, and I swear this is not one of my typical, like, just trying to make a joke about the Steelers, but in a situation like this, like Antonio Brown's the king of this situation to me, as far as someone who was talented, but maybe not worth it, and got himself maybe the way he left the Steelers, you can kind of make an excuse. The way he left the Raiders, I don't think there's any excuse for. Like, it's, and then he went on and was playing. I mean, had good games for the Bucks. So it's I think talent's always going to kind of be the determining factor. Now again, what I don't necessarily understand, and this is kind of the same situation, but where do you fall on if the reason is availability and health? I'll just bring up Jair Alexander. He's on the market because he's missed 20 games in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And the Packers, I think the Packers gave like the biggest compliment they could by saying it was too hard to have him as a maybe because our game plan is completely different when he's there because he's so damn good. But then we don't know what to do when he isn't there. So basically they're saying like, we'd rather just plan for 17 games without you than not know because the plan B sucks. So where do you fall on, like, if injury falls in there, where do you go? Our medical team's better than their medical team. Like,
I don't know if it's like our medical team is better, but more so, okay, how exactly severe is the injury? So let's go another route. You brought up Jair Alexander. Gabe Davis is another one. Reports out of Jacksonville.
Visited the Saints yesterday.
Yeah, and he's visited a bunch of other teams, Pittsburgh being one of them. But there's reports that he's not going to be ready to play with his knee injury up until almost October.
Yep.
And so
I heard the exact same thing.
So buyer beware, right? If you want to pay, like, you're not paying him much because
he's going to be league minimum. His contract offsets. The Jags are paying his. He's going to not hit your salary cap because he's going to be a league minimum.
Right. It's a Russell Wilson type deal where the Denver Broncos were paying him to go somewhere else. But again, like, if you're going to make that, it's not going to cost you a lot of money, but it's going to take up a roster spot. And if he can't play until October, what are you expecting? I guess this is what it comes down to. Like, what are your expectations? If you're saying, look, Gabe, we're going to be a pretty decent team and we're not going to need you till the stretch. Get yourself healthy. Let's get you in the building. Let's get you set up and let's get you really learning the system. And then when you are healthy, we're ready to kind of take the wheels off and the training wheels off and let's really unleash you. I think that it comes down to being realistic with what are some actual parameters. I'll go back to a player. Again, I'm a Steeler fan, so people that might listen to this and aren't Steeler fans, my apologies. The Steelers, this was back in, I think, 2014, maybe around there. They took a flyer on a tight end named Ladarius Green as a free agent, and they paid him a lot of money.
Yep.
And this guy had a history of two things: concussions and an ankle injury. The ankle injury lingered for his entire tenure with the Steelers. He is now viewed as one of the worst free agent signings in Steelers history because he never played. And when he finally did get on the field, he suffered another concussion against Cincinnati, and he basically ended his career. So I think that when you're looking at, and this is not just free agency, but I think that really, because free agents, you have players that are healthy and they're just looking for a better deal and all that stuff. I think in this regard, you're talking about players that have been released. Well, they've been released for a reason, like that's what I can't get through my head. Aaron Rodgers was released from the Jets for a reason. Aaron Glenn didn't like him. Whatever. The front office said, we don't want him here anymore. So the Steelers and the fan base, of course, now are just like, yes, let's go. Let's do this. There has to be some trepidation there, right? Am I seeing this the same way you are?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Aaron Rodgers kind of is multiple faceted of the injuries, also a young team that probably, if he doesn't match their future, but also he is an outspoken, guy. I think that the risk that y'all took on him is worthy. It also helps when y'all are the only team still needing a starting quarterback, and it's like him or Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins makes 2.5 times as much as him.
Right.
So I mean, when we're talking about this happening on the first week of June, I think it's a different conversation than the first week of free agency as well. I'll say too, so the Saints had a famous one where we brought in Brandon Browner, who was a part of the Legion of Boom, and it was pretty well known around the league that they committed pass interference and holding on every single play, but for whatever reason, the NFL was like, oh, that's just the way the Seahawks play, and didn't call it. And I don't know if when Saints thought they signed him, they're like, okay, well, on these plays, he's close enough to touch the receiver, so if he could just hit the ball instead of touch the receiver, it'll be fine. And that's not the way it worked out. He was terrible. And like expecting someone 5, 6, 8 years into a career to completely change their stripes is unrealistic, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so. And I think that it's a situation. This happens every year. And, we're already at the stage of the NFL offseason where if you're worried about like compensatory formula, they don't count. So any player that's still on the open market, even as an unrestricted free agent, does not impact your compensatory formula for next year. So I just think there's a reason why these guys are still available. And the question is it worth it? I don't know.
What about your players? You do have players. I mean, hey, Zach Bond was a pass rushing linebacker that was really good at pass rush in college. The Saints drafted him saying, well, we need to make him a stand-up linebacker, and never really gave him a shot. And then he walks for relatively cheap on a 1-year deal and almost becomes a defensive player of the year for the Eagles, and maybe should have been the defensive player of the year. So there are opportunities to make money, like Malcolm Jenkins, who went on to be a incredible safety in his career, again with the Eagles, and then came back to the Saints. The Saints had him at cornerback for years, and he was fine. But once he went to the Eagles and got moved to safety, he became a really good player. So there are maybe some situational changes. And I hate saying position changes because I think that fans use that too often. They're like, oh, we've got 2 cornerbacks. Let's make him a safety. They're different skill sets. It doesn't always work that way.
Yeah.
We've got an outside corner. Let's just make him a nickel. That's not the way that works.
No.
There's a very different skill set from boundary corner to nickel. And there's a few guys who can do it, but it's very, very rare. So I hate saying positional changes because most people are stupid about that. And it come from the Saints, who Taysom Hill played 5 different positions at a pretty decent clip.
Yeah.
And I hate when people say like the next Taysom Hill. There's not going to be one. There's something really weird about that guy. And there's guys that are super athletic and maybe powerful, but what he did of being able to truly play to block punts and also be a tight end and a running back and a little bit of a quarterback is pretty insane.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that when I mentioned, there's a reason why they're on the open market.
Yeah.
Let's also, and I always try to do this, let's also flip the script and look at it from a player perspective. There's a reason why some of these players are choosing not to sign right now.
Sure.
It's not that's not the teams haven't reached out. Let's say, I believe Asante Samuel Jr. is still on the open market, cornerback. Okay. He might be saying, look, I'm coming off of an injury-riddled season, so there's going to be questions about my health. Okay, let's go through the draft and let's see who gets a corner and who might need one. And then in training camp, I might have several suitors and I can choose which is the best fit for me. And I was shocked, and this kind of opened up my mind a little bit. This was a couple years ago. The Steelers needed pass rush help. They were looking for a fourth pass rusher. And Bud Dupree, former first-round pick of the Steelers, was a free agent. Comes in. The Steelers wanted to give him a 2-year deal. You're thinking, wow, players like, this is fantastic. Give me 2 years instead of one, right? Bud Dupree said, no, I want a 1-year deal.
Yep.
I want to be able to prove myself, and then I want another big contract before I don't get those offers anymore for a big contract. And so that kind of, I think that fans, if I'm trying to give like some guidance, fans also need to look at this from a player perspective too. We often only look at it from an organizational view. Okay, what's wrong with this player? Why wouldn't they sign? Why don't they want to come here? There might be a reason for the player that makes sense. At least that makes sense to me. Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, and if somebody like an Asante Samuel who's young, I think he's 25. It feels like he might be not 25 yet. He's still very young. But if a player like a cornerback or even maybe not a wide receiver so much, but a pass rusher is young and not looking for the last contract that they were trying to get a couple years of it, you should sign 1-year deals right now, because people that come off of one decent year are getting $20-30 million a year.
Yeah.
Real quick. I mean, listen, Chase Young has like all the looks and the should be of
he's your prototype, right? He's your
prototype for sure. Should be the best defensive end in football. And he's topped out at 7.5 or 8 sacks, the best he's ever had in his career. And he just signed a huge contract for $15 million a year. Because he had an okay season where he just was healthy. So I think some of those younger players, it would make sense to get that 1-year deal out, because you get, why sign a 2-year $8 million deal when you might get a 3-year $60 million deal one season later. So
yeah,
it kind of makes sense. Asante Samuel's an interesting one though, because I don't know if when healthy he's never been good, like above average. And now we're talking about a neck injury, but I think that he's going to get an opportunity to start at cornerback for some team, just based on age and draft profile, and if he puts things together. I don't think he's quite out of the league yet.
Well, let me ask you a question here. I want to bring up 2 guys we already mentioned in the podcast. Jair Alexander. Let's go down that road. If you're him, you're Jair Alexander, you've just been released. What kind of contract are you looking for? You looking for a 1-year deal? Hey, I want to be on a contender. I just want to play. I'm healthy. I want to prove that I can stay healthy. Or if someone's offering you a 3-year deal, but it's not maybe as lucrative as you would like, what are you doing if you're him?
Well, I think he thinks that there's a 3 or 4 year, $20+ million a year deal out there somewhere for somebody of his.
I don't think so. I don't think that deal's out there. Do you?
Yeah, somebody will give it to him. Maybe 3 years. Yeah. He'll get 2 of them will be like almost fully guaranteed, I think. He's a top 5 cornerback in the league if healthy.
That's a problem, right?
If you believe that your doctor can put him through a workout and do a physical and says that he's now healthy, then somebody will take that risk on him. I think. Now, whether or not, here's the thing that I think becomes the issue, is the teams, the 1 or 2 teams that are willing to pay that kind of deal are not the teams he wants to go play for. I wouldn't think. But he's leaving the Packers, who some people think have a good quarterback and will be a good contender. So maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he just wants money. Maybe he doesn't care about competing for the playoffs and all. So yeah, I mean, the Panthers or Jaguars or somebody like that will give him a decent deal.
He's going to have a number in mind, and the question is whether, because they wanted to restructure his deal in Green Bay, and he was like, no, I'm not restructuring anything. So that's
Marshawn Lattimore got traded for last year and got a pretty decent return on value, and is going to make $20 million this year. And he hasn't been any healthier than Jair Alexander the last 3 years.
That's true.
So I just think that when you're talking about guys that are potential top 10 of maybe Lattimore, he's not anymore, but right there on the verge of top 10 cornerbacks, Jair Alexander, if healthy, top 5 cornerback in the league.
Agreed.
So I think somebody's going to take that risk of, as our over the next 2 or 3 years, we can do something with him.
I agree. And again, the health is the biggest question. But let's go to Gabe Davis, the wide receiver. And this guy's gone to at least 5 teams already.
Yeah.
And he's visited them. From what I've gathered, from what I've been told, is that everyone always views, okay, the free agent guy came and left without a contract. He's not signing. From what I've been told is that's not what he's doing. He's literally going around, meeting with teams, getting a feel for, hey, like they're doing their medical checks because that's going to be important. They're testing him out. They're talking to him. What are you thinking for contract? Obviously, his agent's involved. If you're Gabe Davis, though, and let's say you don't have a team that you really like, you don't have a team that's giving you a contract that you think is fair. Do you just hold out and say, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to be patient and not sign right away? Or do you want to make sure that you have a home in 2025 going into training camp?
Yeah, I think he needs to have a home in 2025. If I'm him, I need that to be a playoff team because that gives me another 2, 3, 4 weeks of potential games where I can be healthier in December and January than I'm going to be in maybe October.
True.
I heard the same thing. That knee's still not good. And potentially October is when he could play. I've heard the exact same thing you did. But I think for him, he needs to have December reps, January reps, and show that he's healthy so he can get a contract for 2026. But he needs to sign with somebody, and it needs to be a team that has a healthy quarterback, a spot for him to be the number 3. But again, there's not so many potential playoff teams like that. I think y'all are a much better fit for him than I would love to have him in New Orleans just to help the development of our potential young starting quarterback, whichever one it is. Be great to have a number 2 or number 3 receiver there later in the year. But I think for him, it makes sense to go to somewhere where he might be a playoff contender. I think there's a lot more potential for receptions in the Steeler offense. If he,
That's right. He doesn't want to shuck it. He wants to catch A-Rod's passes. That's what he wants. All right. Let's talk about minicamp, which is here. Everyone's in minicamp at this week, I believe. And there's been some players that are not attending. And now remember, this is mandatory minicamp. We're not talking phase 3 of organized team activities or OTAs where it is voluntary unless you have a workout stipulation, which it's amazing, by the way. Lamar Jackson in his career has passed up almost $1 million in workout incentives to show up at OTAs. I find that I can't wrap my brain around that. It's been over $750,000 that he's just said, I don't feel like going. And it's his priority, or he's prioritizing other things, but I mean, it's his prerogative. But there's some big names that are missing out on mandatory minicamp. I read that these players, at least with the Steelers, could be fined upwards to $100,000 for not showing up. That would be TJ Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers not showing up, at least on day 1. Trey Hendrickson, that very public dispute, I guess, if you want to call it, like their back and forth is they are airing out their dirty laundry. Like that is both sides. He's not showing up with the Cincinnati Bengals. Is there anyone else that I'm missing that is a big name no-show?
You've got Terry McLaurin for the Washington Commanders, which I think is a huge one for the development of their young superstar quarterback.
But is there anyone else that I'm missing outside of Scary Terry?
I think that those are the 3 main ones. Obviously, we talked about Jair Alexander. He got cut before becoming a distraction, which is maybe smart. But no, those are the 3 big ones I know that we know of that aren't showing up for the first day. I think, did Micah Parsons end up showing up?
He said he was going to. I saw on Twitter that he said, I'll be there. I've never missed. But
I know he called Schottenheimer and told him good night the other day. That he did that new TikTok trend of doing that.
Stupid. If someone says it's a trend, I do the opposite. But anyways, what do you think about players skipping mini camp? Like, I know it's a non-story, and I know that TJ Watt's going to get his money. Like, I know that at some point, but at the same time, what is your take on these June workouts being skipped as a statement?
Yeah, so kind of both things that you brought up. So if we're talking about optional contract incentives that are, hey, we want to give you extra money if you show up 2 weeks early. I don't have a personal problem with that. Besides, I think you're an idiot to give away $1 million. But that's just stupid. But hey, if you have $100 million and you really like vacation, I get it. Like I'm not faulting you for that, but I just think it's dumb. But is not negative towards a team. You're not a bad teammate. If you have a contract that says you're supposed to be there on June 9th, I think you should be there on June 9th. I'm glad that the NFL they've negotiated to make it to where it's not negotiable that you're going to get fined and lose money, and that can't be eaten by the team. I'm glad that they did that. But I get wanting a new contract. There's a way to do that. And you know what? If you play good this year, you'll get a new contract. Getting it a year early is not what you signed up for. Like you have your 3 or 4 or 5 year deal. That's what you're guaranteed. You're not guaranteed the next one from your team or the next team or anything like that. And honestly, right now, it might be in your benefit to wait as long as possible because somebody's signing a new stupid deal. Believe me, Micah Parsons, where 12 months ago was frustrated that he hadn't got a contract extension. Right now, he's really happy he didn't get a contract extension a year ago because he's got another $30 million potentially over the course of that deal that he's going to get. So, and Trey Hendrickson, same thing, but he just wants that money a year early. Like that's not what you're entitled to. You're entitled to the new contract after this contract. And I mean, I don't know if you believed that you believed in yourself and you were going to be so amazing, then sign 1 year deals. Like it's 4 years ago you wanted a 4-year deal, but now you're wishing that you had only signed a 3-year deal. Like I don't know. And people will always say like, well, the contracts, it's not fair because the team can cut you at any time. No, that's part of the contract negotiators is when they can cut you and how much money you get for being cut. Like, and it can't make sense when you're a free agent that never has had a good season and you want 4 years security, but then you outperform that 4 years. I don't know. There's a contract. It's written for a reason. It says how much money you're going to get. It says how much is guaranteed. It says how much you can get in incentives. All those kind of things. Like follow your contract. Don't be a distraction. And I get it that health is a big question and you get scared of that, but that's not in the contract. You don't want to negotiate games played as part of an incentive.
Well, shoot, contracts are almost a myth like the salary cap is anymore.
For sure.
Because there's always a team that makes a stupid freaking decision and messes it up. Most recently, look at what the Buffalo Bills did with Josh Allen. He had 3 years left on his contract? And they're like, let's give you an extension and let's give you more guaranteed money. Well, guess what other players see? Josh Allen got that. Why am I not getting that? I should get that. And the funny thing is Pittsburgh Steelers fans, in the court of public opinion, fans will always side with the organization. That is just 99% of fans, whether you like the Saints, Steelers, Ravens, whatever, they are going to side with the organization. They're going to fault the players. They're going to call the players selfish. They're going to call them self-centered, doesn't care about the team, doesn't care about the bigger picture. But what it comes down to is that this collective bargaining agreement that the players agreed to is a collective bargained agreement between a union and another entity, in this case, the NFL owners. And so players cannot be upset. TJ Watt's a great example. If the Steelers said, okay, TJ, you want to play hardball, that's fine. Have fun playing out your final year in your contract. And if you play really well this year, we're going to franchise tag you. Why? Because we can. Because it's in the collective bargaining agreement.
Right.
And if the Steelers wanted to just keep tagging him, they could. Is it going to cost them money? Sure it is. Is it a risk? Yes. But at the same time, they have those options. And I just cannot for the life of me. People are saying these workouts don't mean anything. I realize that. But for TJ Watt to say, I'm just not going to show up, that's a horrible look. That's so dumb. Go and stand on the sideline and do nothing is better than not showing up and making a quote unquote statement that you're unhappy. I just think that these cards that are being played by these players, whoever's telling them to throw down whichever card they're throwing down is giving them bad advice. What's your take?
Yeah, the one kind of thing I don't like is what happened with the Bengals, where they cut their linebacker,
Jermaine Pratt, right?
Pratt. I thought it was crappy when they cut him.
Yeah.
Now again, but you could put in your contract, and maybe this should be something that people sort of, if you're going to cut me, I don't need to be cut by the day the NFL says to cut me. If you're going to cut me, it's this. If you cut me after this date, I want this kind of, because there's some leagues that have like trade bonuses. The NBA has that where you get an escalator in your salary if you get traded.
Yeah.
And again, I know the NFL is different. That's the one thing I don't like, is I don't know if that's in good faith. If the Bengals, what people are saying is this cut's been expected since before the draft, and waiting till the first 2 waves of free agency went through, and teams ran out of money. I think that's kind of crappy. But again, it's following the rules. It's not necessarily a bad faith kind of thing to do. How do you feel about if there was a franchise player that's nearing the end of their career, still good, but you're expecting at any time could be the year that they're not good anymore, wanting a multi-year deal, and do they get paid more than what they would get on the open market because of what they've meant to your franchise the last 5 years? Are you
just talking about TJ Watt?
Just players in general.
Just throwing a random scenario out that is the exact same as TJ Watt.
I mean, defensive ends, 2 years ago, if this would happen 2 years ago when TJ Watt was one of the 2 or 3 best defensive ends, and he's still there. He's just last year was kind of, he's missing some games and not getting there on the big third down that you thought he normally would.
Right.
2 years ago, if the TJ Watt that's 2 years younger is getting a $40 million a year contract right now, he's not getting outpaid by Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
But now he's definitely not getting that deal. Does TJ Watt know that he's not Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons right now? And because 2 years ago he was better than both of them.
Here's what his representation
months ago he was better than both of them.
His representation is even saying, look at the numbers. Go look at Myles Garrett's stats. Look at TJ Watt's stats. Look at them next to each other. And Micah Parsons, well, he was injured last year, so his numbers are going to be skewed anyways. But still, they're going to say that there's no real change. He's been steady Eddie, and he has been very productive since he was drafted in 2017. But this is when, and this is something I think the Steelers struggle with, and I know they're not the only organization. Do they cut him a year or two? Do they cut ties with a player too early rather than too late? Bill Belichick was famous for this. I'll never forget Richard Seymour. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, he traded him to the Raiders. Are you kidding me? And you could just see, like, he knew that the end was near. And so let's get out of this thing before it gets ugly. And you bite that bullet and you just move on. I don't think the Steelers would ever play that game, as much as sometimes I wish that they would. And they'll give him a contract. My question would be not, is he going to get a contract? It's, what does that contract look like? How much guaranteed dollars are in it? How many years? So we're talking an extension off of 2025. Is it a 3-year deal? So that way, if it's a 3-year deal, he'll be 31 years old this season. So now we're talking about a 34-year-old pass rusher. Can you get out from underneath that contract if you have to? This is where it gets sticky. And it's also very specific to the position. Like, I think as we talk about pass rushers, whether it's a defensive end, outside linebacker, doesn't matter. Well, that's different than if, say, a quarterback or even a wide receiver who can still be productive later in their 30s. So I don't know. I know what the Steelers are going to do. They're going to give him the money, and everyone's going to say, yes, TJ is locked up. He's a one helmet guy. But there's still a part of me in the back of my brain that says, but should he be? Should they give him that contract? And I can't say yes in this scenario.
Well, and here's the thing that, listen, you might be surprised about this, but TJ Watt only 14 months older than Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
it's not like there's like this huge age difference between the two of them. And again, this is Cleveland, who's notorious for maybe giving bad guaranteed deals that the rest of the NFL hates. Yeah. This may be one that people are going to keep trying to match. That just it's not out there for other teams.
Yeah. And everyone views this differently. Every team sees this differently. And so we'll see how it shakes out. But Wesley, I've taken up a lot of your time already. I want to give you an opportunity. But what are your final thoughts on all of this contract stuff? I hate this stuff. I really do. Like, out of all the stuff, I like talking about football. I really hate talking about contracts. I hate talking about the positioning of an agent and a representation and all this stuff and players skipping out on workouts. And I can't stand it. Can't stand it. What are your final thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I'm the same. And you mentioned it earlier, but like I am a lifelong fan of my teams, and was a fan of those teams before a player came along, and I will be a fan of that team after the player's gone. And I think about the long-term success of the franchise and me being able to continue to proudly wear the team's logo for many years. And so I will always, same as you said, kind of side on the team and not the player. I do want them to, do things in the interest of being a good organization. But I want that to be right. And I think the things are written in contracts that each side needs to follow the contract, needs to go by them. Having said that, my team just greatly benefited from Derek Carr not holding to his contract and giving us $30 million back, which is such a weird, crazy thing that people that are really know about the situation, like they can't explain it either, why it happened. So I've benefited from that. So I don't want to be a hypocrite, but in general, I want us to follow the contracts. Let's negotiate up front what you want. What about you, Jeff? What's your final thought?
I'm going to pull for the black and rubber ducky yellow every single day of the week. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm headed. And for those that don't know that joke, I tweeted out, and I know that Saints fans, they're always the ones that say stuff when I mention something about black and gold. And Wesley, of course, he's always in the comments of my Twitter X account, and he goes, technically, that's not gold. And because someone tweeted something with the Aaron Rodgers, it looks good in black and yellow. It's like, oh my gosh, no one says that. I understand Wiz Khalifa does, but it's Steeler fans call it black and gold. And then, oh my gosh, that tweet got way too many comments, way too much reach for what I ever thought it would. And it turned into Wesley pulling up samples of yellows.
Somebody else pulled up the samples. I just matched them up to his pants.
And it turns out that the Steelers are black and rubber ducky yellow. Is that what it was?
Perfect. It was, but they black and rubber ducky, which honestly would be a great marketing campaign. Like they'd do just fine.
They actually once had that giant duck float down the river right by Acrisure Stadium. So that's fine. It fits, like the rubber ducky yellow.
Which of the rivers did it go down?
I don't know.
Aren't there 3 of them?
It eventually got to the Ohio, which is where the confluence is for the Monongahela and the Allegheny. So those are the 3 rivers.
Glad we cleared that up.
You're welcome. There's your geography lesson for today. All right, Wesley, good stuff, man. Go ahead and plug your social media stuff.
Yeah, you can find my uniform and color comments on X at @WhoDatWesley13. You can find me talking to Jeff and ignoring his golf comments. Jeff, where can we find you in your U.S. Open coverage?
Yes, U.S. Open's coming up this weekend at J Hartman, HARTMAN_PIT. I'm going to be glued in, man. Oakmont Country Club's going to be fun. We'll see if the USGA can really punish these players, make me feel better about my own game. That's what we're looking forward to see. So, all right, Wesley, man, thanks for your time. We'll talk next week. Take it easy.
See you, man.